In a world where our attention is fragmented, our time constantly hijacked, and our productivity driven by shallow metrics, there is a state of mind that stands in direct opposition to the noise. It's not just a buzzword, it's not a trendy productivity hack. It's a neurological state, deeply researched, immensely powerful, and often misunderstood. Flow. You've likely heard the term. Maybe even glimpsed it. That rare zone where hours disappear, effort dissolves, and your mind operates with a clarity that feels almost unfair. But flow isn't magic, it's not accidental, and it's not reserved for elite athletes or Silicon Valley coders. It's trainable, designable, measurable. In this video, we'll break down the science and systems behind flow states, and how they intersect with deep work, focus, and long-form concentration. We'll go far beyond motivational quotes, and instead map the triggers, cycles, and conditions that allow flow to emerge. You'll learn why your brain resists deep work, why multitasking is a biological impossibility, and why your greatest focus isn't a matter of discipline, but of friction. We'll examine how the flow cycle mirrors high-performance recovery patterns, how to engineer your environment for neurochemical alignment, and how silence, challenge, and intention all play a role in flow's architecture. This video isn't designed to hype you. It's built to train you. Focus depth exists for one reason: to restore clarity in a world optimized for noise. Flow is not focus, not in the everyday sense. You can be focused and still feel strained. You can be focused and still be conscious of the clock. You can be focused and still be fighting your own mind. Flow is different. In flow, you don't just focus on a task. You merge with it. The barrier between effort and execution disappears. You're no longer trying to focus. You're simply doing. Thinking becomes acting. Awareness collapses into movement. Time distorts. And the inner critic, the voice that narrates, doubts, hesitates, goes quiet. But let's be clear. Flow is not some mystical trance. It's a neurological state, deeply researched, measurable, and real. At the chemical level, flow is driven by a cocktail of neurochemicals: dopamine, norepinephrine, anandamide, endorphins, and serotonin. This isn't a vague mental shift. It's a full-body cascade, sharpening attention, enhancing pattern recognition, suppressing distractions, and boosting performance. In contrast, regular concentration, what most people mistake for productivity, is cognitively expensive. You're forcing attention, resisting urges, suppressing interruptions. It works, but it burns fuel fast. Flow, on the other hand, is metabolically efficient. Your brain doesn't feel like it's working hard, even though you're performing at peak capacity. You feel clear, fast, fully present. Not because you're pushing harder, but because you're aligned with the task's rhythm. Importantly, flow is not multitasking. Multitasking is a myth. The brain cannot attend to two cognitively demanding tasks at once. What we call multitasking is really rapid task switching, and each switch has a cost. The more you switch, the more time and energy you waste. Flow demands the opposite. It thrives in single-tasked immersion, full cognitive and sensory bandwidth directed toward one objective. Ideally, that objective is challenging enough to stretch your skills, but not so hard it overwhelms you. That balance, between challenge and skill, is where flow emerges. It's called the flow channel. And most importantly, flow is not an accident. It can be triggered, designed, engineered. But only if you understand its mechanics, which is what we'll explore next. Flow doesn't just happen. It requires specific triggers and preconditions. In other words, you can't brute force your way into flow. You have to set the stage. Let's start with the psychological triggers. These are internal conditions that prime the brain for flow. Number 1. Clear goals. The brain thrives on clarity. When your objective is vague, attention drifts. When it's specific, attention locks in. Second, immediate feedback. You need to know, in real time, whether you're moving in the right direction. Feedback tightens the feedback loop. It keeps your brain engaged, adjusting, adapting. Third, challenge/skill ratio. As we covered earlier, the task must sit on the edge of your ability. Not too easy, not too hard. If it's too easy, you get bored. Too hard, you get anxious. Flow lives in the tension between the two. Fourth, deep engagement. This means no multitasking, no distractions, no alerts, no tabs, no scrolling. Flow punishes division of attention. It rewards immersion. Now let's talk environmental triggers. These are external cues and conditions that make flow more likely. First, high consequences. When there's something real on the line, a deadline, an audience, a risk, your system mobilizes. Adrenaline and focus spike. Second, rich environment. Novelty, complexity, unpredictability. These stimulate dopamine, and dopamine is flow's ignition fuel. Third, deep embodiment. This mostly applies to athletes or performers, but the principle holds. When the task involves physicality, even typing, sketching, or moving, flow becomes more accessible. Finally, group flow triggers. Shared goals, close listening, uninterrupted communication, equal participation. These build synchrony, and synchrony fuels shared flow. Whether you're working solo or in a team, the lesson is the same. You don't stumble into flow. You build toward it by shaping conditions that align your brain and body to the task. Next, we'll explore the flow cycle and why trying to stay in flow all the time is not only impossible, but counterproductive. Flow isn't permanent. It's a cycle. And like any cycle, it has stages. Recognizing them helps you enter flow faster and recover without burnout. The flow cycle has 4 parts. 1. Struggle. 2. Release. 3. Flow. 4. Recovery. Let's break them down. The first stage is struggle. This is where you load the brain. You research, brainstorm, fail, restart. It's frustrating on purpose. You're stretching your neural networks, forcing the brain to build new connections. But if you stay here too long, stress chemicals build up, which is why the next stage is essential. Stage 2, release. You stop forcing the problem. You take a walk, step back, shift gears. This pause allows the subconscious to take over. It flushes stress hormones and lets dopamine rise. You're not doing nothing. You're preparing for entry. Then, if the triggers are in place, you enter stage 3, flow. Here, performance feels effortless. Awareness merges with action. Time distortion kicks in. The brain floods with powerful neurochemicals. But it can't last forever. Stage 4, recovery. After flow, the body needs rest. This is when the brain consolidates learning and the nervous system resets. Most people skip this. They chase flow again without recovering, and they burn out. But peak performance is rhythmic. It's not about staying on all the time. It's about timing your energy, not just your effort. True high performers don't push constantly. They oscillate. They move between intensity and restoration. This is why recovery is not optional. It's the other half of performance. So don't fight the down cycle. Use it. Sleep deeply. Recover fully. Flow will return, stronger. So how do you actually trigger flow? And what are the repeatable methods that move you from effort to immersion? It starts with preparing your system, mentally, physically, and environmentally. Let's walk through the key practical levers. First, time block for deep work. You can't drift into flow between meetings. You need a window, at least 90 minutes, with zero interruptions. Why 90 minutes? Because that's the average ultradian rhythm, the natural cycle of energy and focus in the human brain. You're syncing biology with intention. Second, start with a clear goal. This isn't optional. The brain craves direction. A fuzzy task produces fuzzy focus. Clarify the outcome. Not write the chapter, but draft the introduction and main argument. Third, use a ritualized entry. Small cues can signal the brain it's time to enter a different mode. Maybe it's a certain playlist, a walk, a cup of coffee followed by headphones. The cue doesn't matter, the consistency does. Fourth, apply a challenge ramp. Don't start with the hardest task. Warm up with something moderately hard, then increase intensity. Flow tends to emerge once you're already in motion, so momentum is part of the recipe. Fifth, preload your context. If you're writing, reread the last few paragraphs. If you're designing, scan yesterday's sketches. If you're coding, step through the last function you built. Don't start cold. Flow hates friction. Give your brain a warm handoff. Sixth, minimize internal noise. Do a quick brain dump before you start. Get the mental clutter out, tasks, worries, reminders. If it's swirling in your head, it's stealing working memory, and flow runs on available bandwidth. Seventh, optimize your environment. Silence, natural light, good airflow, they matter. Even posture can influence your mental state. A cluttered desk is a cluttered prefrontal cortex. Clean your space. Reduce noise. Remove friction. Finally, guard the ramp-up phase. The first 15 minutes are the most fragile. If you get distracted early, flow never gets a chance to ignite. Turn off notifications. Put the phone out of sight. Use full screen. Make distraction impossible, not just unlikely. These techniques aren't magic, they're mechanisms. Individually, they help. Together, they compound. Flow isn't a trick, it's architecture. And you are the architect. Most people don't fail because of lack of talent. They fail because they can't win the battle against themselves. Let's get real. You probably know what matters. You know you should be doing focused work, but you find yourself scrolling, avoiding, delaying. It's not a mystery. It's procrastination. But procrastination isn't laziness. It's a response to internal resistance. It's your brain avoiding discomfort, avoiding uncertainty, difficulty, or the fear of failure. And what fuels that avoidance? Dopamine loops. Each swipe, each ping, each tiny reward, they hijack your motivational systems. Over time, your brain starts preferring the small, quick win over the deep, slow reward of disciplined work. It becomes harder to sit still, harder to concentrate. Your thoughts fragment. overthinking takes over. You replay decisions. You analyze outcomes that haven't even happened. And while your mind spirals, the work remains untouched. That's the trap. Discipline is the way out. Discipline isn't forcing yourself to hustle harder. It's learning how to interrupt the loop of dopamine-driven avoidance. You break the loop not with willpower, but with structure. You set limits on distractions. You set clear starting cues. You build rituals. And you lower the threshold for starting. One small action. One focused block of time. One defined task. The mistake people make is trying to feel ready. Waiting for clarity, confidence, or motivation. But the truth is, you won't feel ready. You act first. The motivation follows. That's how discipline grows. You learn to act despite doubt. You learn to move, even when the noise is loud. And with each repetition, you strengthen the neural pathways that make flow possible. Dopamine stops being the enemy. It becomes an ally, when it's tied to progress, not distraction. So here's the formula. Reduce overthinking. Interrupt the dopamine loop. Start with action. Discipline makes flow repeatable. Not by chance, but by design. Focus isn't magic. It's mechanics. Your brain isn't wired for constant attention. It's built to scan, react, and preserve energy. To enter deep work, you have to override that default mode. That's where focus techniques become essential. Andrew Huberman explains this with clarity. When your visual field narrows, when your eyes lock onto one point, your brain gets the signal. Focus is required. Intentional gaze activates the circuitry for concentration. Norepinephrine rises. Dopamine stabilizes. You shift from passive awareness to directed engagement. So start with the eyes. Let visual stillness trigger mental stillness. The next step is rhythm. Earlier, we explored how attention moves in natural cycles. Waves of energy followed by dips. Here, that insight becomes structure. You design your deep work session to fit within one of these peaks. Roughly an hour of sustained effort, sometimes more, sometimes less, but always followed by a reset. Not a scroll, not a side task. A real reset. This isn't about working harder. It's about protecting cognitive intensity. Because concentration isn't brute force. It's frictionless flow, once momentum is built. But that momentum breaks easily. Every time you glance at your phone, check a tab, or respond to a message, you reset your neural alignment. You lose the thread. Huberman calls this prefrontal anchoring. When you're locked in, irrelevant signals get suppressed. But one interruption, and that gate collapses. That's why real deep work requires real boundaries. Before you begin, remove all loose ends. No phone. No ambient notifications. No task switching. Set a timer. Commit to a single outcome. And begin. You're not chasing flow yet. You're building the platform it stands on. Through rhythm. Through stillness. Through conscious constraint. You don't lose your focus all at once. You lose it in fragments. Each time you switch tabs, glance at your phone, or skim a message, a piece of your attention detaches. And while you may think you've returned to the task, a part of your cognitive bandwidth stays behind. This is what researchers call attention residue. It's not about how fast you switch. It's about what you leave behind when you do. Your mind lingers on the last thing, even as you try to move forward. That's why task switching feels so costly. It's not just the time lost, it's the clarity lost. You don't just delay progress, you dilute it. And over time, this erosion of presence becomes your default mode. You stop noticing it, but your attention span contracts. Your depth weakens. And here's the paradox. Even the best time management systems fail if your mind is split. Because what looks like a full calendar can still feel like an empty day. You might check off 10 tasks and still feel like nothing got done. Not because you were lazy, but because your attention was scattered. This fragmentation doesn't just affect productivity. It erodes your mental health. The more your attention is pulled in multiple directions, the more your nervous system stays in a subtle fight or flight. Not enough to trigger panic, but enough to keep you in shallow mode. Reactive, edgy, tired. You stop accessing the calm focus where real thinking happens. And here's where most people make the wrong correction. They try to push harder. More effort. More structure. More apps. But the problem isn't that you need to do more. It's that you need to recover better. Your brain operates on cycles. We touched on this earlier, the waves of energy and fatigue. But this time the focus is not on performance. It's on recovery. The ultradian rhythm, roughly 90-minute intervals of natural focus, followed by dips, is not just a scheduling trick. It's a neurological boundary. When you cross it without rest, your brain starts to punish you. You make more mistakes. You feel more restless. You lose the thread of what matters. But if you honor the rhythm, if you disengage fully after periods of deep work, you reset your nervous system. You return with clarity. But not all breaks are equal. Scrolling isn't rest. Background noise isn't silence. To truly reset, you need real disengagement. A walk, a nap, a blank notebook, a silent room. Moments that let the cognitive loops close. Only then can your mind return to depth. Because focus is not about holding on harder. It's about letting go intentionally and returning whole. So if you want to fix your attention, don't just install a new calendar. Repair your context. Protect your rhythms. And most of all, stop scattering yourself across tabs. In the next part, we go deeper into the spaces around you and how they shape the mind within. Focus isn't just a matter of will. It's a matter of design. Your environment is never neutral. It's either sharpening your attention or slicing it apart. Welcome to the field of environmental psychology, the science of how physical spaces shape mental states. Lighting, noise, color, layout. These aren't decoration. They're input signals to your nervous system. When your environment is chaotic, your mind mirrors it. When the space is overloaded, so is your attention. Noise is one of the most underestimated cognitive pollutants. It doesn't need to be loud to be disruptive. It just needs to be inconsistent. Random beeps. Distant voices. The hum of a screen. Each sound pulls at your attention budget, and you never get those fragments back. That's why noise reduction isn't about comfort. It's about preserving cognitive energy. Even background noise you think you've tuned out still activates auditory processing pathways. Your brain is working, even when you're not aware. Over time, this leads to subtle fatigue, poor retention, and decreased depth of thought. So what do? You don't need a perfect studio. You need a deliberate one. Start by removing chaotic inputs. Declutter. Digitally and physically. Visual complexity drains focus. This is the principle of digital minimalism. Coined by Cal Newport, It's not about using less technology. It's about using it with intention. Everything in your workspace should either serve your goal or stay out of the way. No random tabs, no glowing distractions, no background dopamine loops running silently in another window. The same applies to your devices. Your phone isn't a tool, it's a portal to 1,000 interruptions. If you want clarity, build borders. Hard borders. Silent mode. Do not disturb. App blockers. Put friction between you and distraction, because otherwise it will win. Clarity doesn't come from motivation. It comes from elimination. When your space is clean, your mind has room to think. When your devices are quiet, your ideas can get loud. So ask yourself, is your workspace designed for clarity or for convenience? Because every object, every window, every sound is either helping you go deep or holding you in the shallows. Build an environment that whispers, do one thing, now. Then listen. People talk about motivation like it's an energy source. But that's a misunderstanding. Motivation isn't fuel. It's feedback. It reflects your momentum, not your willpower. If you rely on feeling motivated, you've already lost. Real performance is built on systems. And those systems are built on habits. But habits don't start with repetition. They start with identity. You don't stick to a behavior because it's easy. You stick to it because it feels like you. That's the key insight from modern motivation psychology. Change that lasts begins from the inside out. Not, I want to write more. But, I am a writer. Not, I should focus. But, I am someone who protects attention. The deeper the identity, the more stable the habit. So don't just build habits. Build evidence of identity. Every time you show up, you reinforce the story. Every session, every rep, every interruption resisted, is a vote for who you are. But identity isn't enough, because friction breaks identity. If the habit requires too much effort to start, you'll skip it, even if it aligns with your values. That's why elite performers design their routines to reduce activation energy. No willpower, just momentum. Laptop already open, notebook already out, phone already silenced. They remove the choice, so action becomes automatic. This is friction design. You don't just build new habits. You remove the blockers. You don't just say no to distraction. You make distraction inconvenient. If social media wastes your time, log out every day. Hide the icon. Use grayscale. Make the wrong action harder. Because behavior follows path of least resistance. And if your environment is built for scrolling, you will scroll. But when everything in your system nudges you toward depth, you won't need to push. You'll just move. So if you're stuck, stop chasing better strategies. Start reducing friction. The most powerful behavioral shift isn't adding something new. It's subtracting what blocks you. Strip away what doesn't serve. Sharpen what does. And then, act as the person you already are, but more deliberately. Because the mind follows structure, and structure begins inside. You've built structure. You've protected your time, your focus, your space. But the question remains, what are you building toward? Without direction, discipline becomes mechanical. You check boxes. You optimize inputs, but you forget the reason you started. Deep work isn't just about performance. It's about alignment. Every focused hour rewires your mind. Every repetition strengthens the path you're on. This is neuroplasticity in motion, not in theory. Your habits are sculpting your identity. Your environment is shaping your cognition. The question is, toward what? This is where many people get stuck. They build systems, but forget the system needs a core. That core is your big thing. Not 5 things, not balance. The one pursuit that organizes the rest. Call it your mission, your project, your long arc. It doesn't matter what you name it. What matters is that you name it. Because when everything matters equally, nothing matters at all. This is the core of the one thing philosophy. Find the action that makes all others easier or irrelevant. Focus isn't just about intensity, it's about clarity of aim. Your attention is the seed of identity. What you water grows, what you ignore fades. And here's the brutal truth. Most people don't have a focus problem. They have a direction problem. They scroll because there's no task that feels more alive. They drift because nothing feels worth anchoring to. You don't fix that with productivity hacks. You fix it with meaning. Your life purpose isn't a cosmic answer. It's a behavioral pattern. It's what you keep returning to, even when it's hard. You don't find it by thinking. You find it by doing and paying attention to what calls you back. So here's the challenge. Choose one problem to obsess over. Choose one skill to master. One outcome that truly matters. Then build your entire focus system to serve that aim. Your time blocks, your routines, your digital rules, your mornings, your workspace, your inputs. All of it aligned. Because the human brain is programmable, and you are always programming it, the only question is, what are you training it to become? Attention isn't just a tool, it's a vote. Every day you cast it. On distraction, or depth, on dopamine loops, or clarity, on noise, or the signal that matters. So choose the one thing. Then return to it, again and again, until it becomes who you are. Because focus isn't just how you work, it's how you live, and how you become.